Nigeria's Department of Petroleum Resources has revoked a total of 6 oil licenses over what the regulator I beg your pardon, I'll take that again. Nigeria's Department of Petroleum Resources has revoked a total of 6 oil licenses over what the regulator described as legacy debts. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump says he could raise an additional $300 billion tariff on China if necessary. Uchenna, Minnis, Chief Market Analyst at Eagle Global Markets, now joins me to discuss the stories and more stories impacting the global oil dynamics. Uchenna, glad to have you on the show, as always.
Thank you.
So we're looking at a myriad of issues now as far as Nigeria's oil sector is concerned and the global oil sector. Let's start first from Nigeria to talk about the legacy debts that we're looking to revamp and which has necessitated the government now with revoking the oil licenses of six of them in total, miners and then oil prospecting licenses. First, your thoughts on that?
It's quite surprising that we could even enforce that, given our inherent capability to circumvent issues, really. That expectation is that they would find some way to probably cut corners as regards to what was really on ground. Earlier this year in February, Ibe Kachiko really highlighted how much these individuals or communal operators are supposed to have remitted back to the federal government based on the contract they have with the federal government. But doing that is just probably trying to raise that standard of quality and, should I say, ethical responsibility as to how operators should go on going forward. And as regards to operation, yeah, on the short term, that will be squeezed out. We'll know that these guys will not be able to operate, as it were. But in the long term, if things are resolved, things can still get back to normal.
Uchenna, you highlighted raising standards. Clearly also, we are looking for money from oil, which has necessitated, first of all, a look at the operating licenses that need to be revoked, restructured, and also recent talks about the review of the production sharing contracts. At this point, what are your recommendations for area that Nigerians can look into inwards to generate revenue from oil?
So with the PCS implementation, it's trying to diversify us to get more revenues aside from oil, given the situation on the downside pressure of oil. I think earlier in the year, we were the only, should I say, financial outlet that put out that indication that oil will still see a significant downside pressure as what we are facing. And it's quite impressive that the administration is front-running the possible issues as to the downside pressure on oil prices. So I think that's, that would really help, should I say, revamp revenue generation from all the aspects, really.
So clearly you did see oil prices coming down as low as $60 that we're
even 30,
at
even 30. We're looking at 30.
So that raises an alarm bell, naturally, given that our budget sits on oil at the moment.
Yeah, it's really quite significant how people get to misinterpret or just mishear the possibility or the variable when it comes to demand. Everybody really focuses on supply and talk about how OPEC will cut to keep price stable, and no one really talks about demand. And what that is that the escalation of trade war is pushing prices lower, and also the U.S. is significantly producing some ridiculous amount of oil right now. So for us, we are considering the other side of the variable, that's demand and U.S. supply quota, as it were, and that's going to continue to push downside pressure in oil.
So with U.S. producing, like you said,
yeah,
outrageously, and then still stoking the trade wars.
Yeah.
Let's look at the impact of this on the global oil scene.
Yeah. So now this is no longer a war with just China now. We're going with Mexico, we're going with
China has got another, is it $300 billion?
Yeah, it's fighting close to like about 6 to 7 trade wars from all fronts. So this is heightened market risk, and that would put you know how oil is a risky asset, so you know that risk of sentiment will cause investors to move their portfolio from risky assets such as oil, and that's what we are seeing firsthand now.
And Russia's response to OPEC is that it is currently disagreeing with the body on what it considers to be a fair oil price. What would you say is the fair oil price to sit on?
You see, that's that point where it's quite confusing, because now Vladimir Putin clearly stated what the issue is. Saudi Arabia needs to balance the budget at about $80 and $90 per barrel. Russia needs $40 per barrel. Russia did not meet their production quota this year at all. It was Saudi Arabia that have been significantly overcutting just to mark up for the deficit of Russia. Now, Russia is saying, well, I think we are okay. We are looking to stabilize oil price. We're not looking to increase oil price. And Saudi Arabia is saying, well, stabilization and increasing oil price is where we are talking about, and that's where the confusion comes in.
It's a demand and supply and ability to meet demand and supply dynamics drama, obviously.
Exactly. And these two giant or behemoth producers of oil have different propaganda as to what they want oil price should be.
And to what extent does this put OPEC in a tight corner? Because OPEC is definitely not just about the two countries.
OPEC is confused. And if you can see now, this is the third time they are pushing their meeting. So the possible time they'll be meeting is the first week, I think July 2nd or July 4th. And that is showing how they are facing significant pressure as to what to do. But that meeting, the outcome of that meeting in around July would give us a clear indication of where their stance is really.
Or where they're able to sit as regards what they call a fair oil price. Now, let's come back home to Nigeria. The last time we had the production sharing contract reviewed, according to reports, it was at 2005. First 1986, then 1993, 2000, and 2005. Now, 2019. What would you say was responsible for that long dearth of silence regarding a review of the production sharing contracts?
As you know, you don't say everything with your mouth, right?
So how else do you say it on TV?
You don't say everything with your mouth, but then again, this is where we are, how we get to regress in terms of our progress, and that puts us in a very tight corner where we see even countries that are really not up to our quota or our standard are doing way better. Well, if they're looking to start up now, I think probably we're looking to understand the importance and the significance of how we need to maintain quality standard, as it were.
And back to the OMLs that were revoked now and the OPLs. I'll read to you an extract from a report now. It's been said that some companies have a habit of not paying in full for the OMLs allocated to them, or not remitting royalties and taxes in full or in timely manner. So I'm thinking, who's failing? Who should be looking but is not looking? And this is kind of almost connected to what we just addressed now.
Yeah, it is what it is. So if I'm looking to pay a particular chunk of amount, my ethical responsibility is to pay a particular chunk of amount. But if I can pay some very little amount out of that just to meet out some other delegates or people that can look blind, why would I just take that shorter route and be greedy in that regards? That's what it is, really.
Uchenna, many thanks to you for your time on the show as always. Uchenna Minnis is the Chief Market Analyst at Eagle Global Markets.